If you're building your ABA company and you're tired of guessing, this is for you. We built the BCBA blueprint to give you real structure, systems, and support without the fluff. Details are in the description.
Like with all the AI stuff, we're gonna have to actually announce before a show. This show was filmed using live people, and it's not just generated with AI.
It's interesting because I've been doing so much work with AI the past couple of years that I feel like that's one of my predictions is that in all seriousness, over the course of the next 5-10 years, just like we see on products now where it says certified organic, I think we're going to see certified human. Like this was either made or produced or what you're listening to in a podcast, whatever it is, certified human. Because I think people are going to want that sort of connection to other human beings and want to know what was AI generated and what wasn't. So yeah, I actually think that's relevant.
Just like when you look at something with like you're buying some kind of trinket or piece of art, like saying like a wood carving, right? This was hand carved, right? There's certain value coming with that. Could you make a whole bunch of them actually more detailed and really cool on a CNC machine and just have a laser or a little drill bit zip it out for you? Yeah, you could, but people like to have handmade stuff. So it's going to shift to like humans versus robots, right? Like it already is, right? Because people want to see that genuine hand stitched leather or hand carved wood or whatever. It's going to be a weird next 5 or so years here. I think it's going to get real weird.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. I used to travel a lot to Europe all the time, and I would pick up trinkets from Europe that were specifically handmade. I remember I purchased some pens over there that were made by a mom and pop shop over there. And they weren't as durable as like something that you would get at Office Depot, but they had more value to me simply because they were handmade, like you said, and somebody put a lot of love into that, a lot of care into putting that pen together. And I took better care of it. I think there's an interesting psychology behind that for some reason.
All right, welcome everybody. These live streams are they hold a special place in my heart. Like we get so much done as far as just getting information from these high-level experts and subject matter experts in their specific areas of expertise. And it's one of the big values that we want to really continue to drive. So you guys showing up to this stuff and participating is really what drives us to continue doing these and pushing forward. So today we've got Adam Ventura, founder and CEO of Intraverbal AI. Adam has an extensive background in ABA therapy. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how AI can address some of your clinical time constraints, streamline things like supervision, reducing the report writing and the time that you have to invest in building those reports. And we want to talk about some real world applications in the ABA therapy market, FBA reporting, FBA support, rather, goal writing, those sorts of things. Join me in welcoming Adam from Intraverbal AI. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thanks, Derek. It's great to be here. It's always, I so rarely get a chance to do a podcast or a live stream with somebody from my area. But you guys are down here in Miami as well, so I feel like we could have met in person.
True. Yeah, we're about an hour and a half north. We're up. I'm in Martin County, up in Stewart. Josh is just north of me in Martin County, so it's a little bit of a drive. But I did live in Doral for a few years. I loved it in Miami. Around here, everything closes at 9 o'clock and it's done. Like in Doral, you can go get a steak dinner and go bowling or something in the middle of the night. It's great. Like the city never sleeps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's a staple of Miami is 24/7 bowling alleys. Yeah, absolutely. I did that in high school and college. Absolutely.
So AI it's an exciting topic, but it's also a sensitive topic for a lot of people. And what we were talking about before we went live was the desire for people to deal with humans and to work with humans and the importance of that kind of human to human connection, whether it's buying a handcrafted piece of art, or Adam mentioned he picked up some pens that were handmade by a little mom and pop shop in Europe. It's this human interaction that is the most important part of all of our interactions. And one of our principles in applying AI to your business or to your life is HITL, human in the loop. Always having a human who is the final approver, always having a human who's reviewing everything that AI system is doing for you to make sure that it doesn't lead you astray. Because all AI really is just a really fast processor. It's a calculator on a high level. And if you plug in the wrong numbers, it's going to give you the wrong results no matter what. It's garbage in, garbage out, just like any other system. And you always want to be making sure that you are reviewing those results. Most of your time using AI systems is going to be reviewing and ensuring that the results that the AI system has given you are actually correct and proper for what you're using them for. So this is not about replacing humans with AI. This is about augmenting humans with AI. This is not about shortcutting through your clinical procedures and your decision-making process and just pencil whipping it and getting an answer out of AI. This is about making you faster, more thorough, and more detailed in your clinical delivery. So I just want to make that clear before we get into this conversation, because this is about providing better quality services with less time. This is not about cutting corners or shortcutting your clients or shortchanging them in any way. Adam, where do we start with AI on the clinical side of things? What is the first place where you can implement AI to start speeding things up or improving your processes?
Yeah, I actually want to follow up with what you mentioned there, Derek. It's so important because that's been one of the slogans, taglines that I've been tossing around the past year, is that AI and ABA doesn't mean artificial intelligence, it means augmented intelligence. So I love that word that you used. I think it emphasizes the point that this technology is designed to make you better at your job, not replace you at your job. And I can't think of another job that is more human than what we do in applied behavior analysis. So our job is to work with other humans and help the humans that we work with be better at being humans. So much of what we do are things like social skills, interacting with other people, human connections. Every time you define or describe what we do, it involves the word human. If I had a family member or a friend that required the services that we provide, I would want it to be provided by a human being, because there's so many different nuances that AI just can't capture right now that require a human being. So to your point, I really want to reinforce that these tools are designed to make writing reports easier, make taking data easier, but ultimately, while ultimately behavior analysts are going to be more of data analyzers versus data collectors, but there's still going to be some data collection that we're going to do, always. So while we may not do moment-to-moment, response-by-response, trial-by-trial data collection in the future, we're still going to be doing some of that, because we're going to move from data collector to IOA person. Okay, the AI system collecting a whole bunch of data. Let me collect some sample data as well, and then compare my data to its data to make sure that it's capturing what it should be capturing. And then after that, I may ask it to do an analysis, but I'm going to do an individual analysis as well, and then compare the two. And I know data collection isn't very prominent in AI and ABA right now. There's some companies that are doing it. But as we move in that direction, I think that's a perfect example illustrating how behavior analysts are going to be augmented by this technology, not replaced.
Yeah, and I tell a lot of different people, ABA is a one-to-one service delivery, one human delivering service to another human. The is really where I don't know if I got cut off there, but
Yeah, slow down. It's okay. Go ahead.
The augmentation, using AI to augment yourself to serve more humans, is by increasing your own capacity and reducing your workload per client is obviously going to allow you to serve more people, which kind of feeds into, you're not going to be replaced by AI, but there is a good chance that you're replaced by someone using AI. And just the fact that they're increasing their capacity, they're lowering their cost, reducing the amount of time spent per client, delivering the same or better services. And that's why it's important to make sure that you're staying ahead of these things and paying attention to the AI as it develops in your market, all the tools in all areas of your business, because if you're not using it, somebody who is eventually going to catch up to you. So we talked a little bit about data collection, like where is point A where you would recommend someone to start using? If they're not using AI anywhere on their clinical side, what is the first stop on the clinical AI implementation roadmap?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would start outside of behavior analysis, and I would start with one of the large language models that are out there. So ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Grok, one of those systems out there is a great starter system for them, just to get a sense for how human beings interact with this technology. This technology is fantastic. However, it requires a critical skill set on the part of the human being interacting with it. And that skill set is prompt engineering. If I could simplify this for behavior analysts, I would say you need to be able to pinpoint, know what you want and ask for what you want. So it's really, you need to be skilled at pinpointing and man training, basically. So you need to be able to specifically identify what it is you're trying to do and then correctly ask the systems for it. And to tie this back to our previous conversation, I'll use ChatGPT or Claude all the time to work on some creative projects. And I'll say, okay, for example, I'm always working on new projects, and I'll say, I'll need a name for this particular project. And I'll ask, or I'll explain what I'm trying to do. I'll give it context. This is what I'm trying to do. These are the parameters that I'm working in, and I need to create some names. So please give me 10 creative names for this. And it'll give me 10 names, and I'll say, that's great. And then I'll ask follow-up questions. So it's like an intraverbal chain for the behavior analysts out there. And the important process here for these systems is that they're iterative. You're building on top of one question builds on top of another, on top of another. And what I've found is that I've used ChatGPT, let's say, for example, for the past 2.5, 3 years to work on those creative projects. And I've used it, let's say, maybe 40, 45 times for that specific task. And never once have I used one of the suggestions that it gave me. However, it gave me an idea of how to look at the problem, let's say, of naming these projects. So I'll go in there and say, I want to work on this new tool for our system, Intraverbal AI, and I need a clever name for it. It'll give me 10 names. I won't like any of the names, but I'm like, oh, I didn't think that I could use this naming strategy that ChatGPT did. So then now the system, and this kind of illustrates the bidirectionality of using these systems, the system is prompting me and saying, hey, you don't have to think about it in these linear terms, for example. You can be a little bit more abstract, and you can think about it in this way. And then I'll go through that iterative process for about 15 or 20 minutes. I'll take a pause. I'll go out, maybe I'll play with my son, I'll go to the gym, something like that. And it's in that moment, I'll be at the gym and I'll be like, hey, you know what? I can name it this. So I feel like these systems, if you use them right, they're not going to give you all of the answers, but they're going to put you on a path where you can think in different directions that you didn't think about before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and what you're talking about with learning how to work with the AI system, it's the same thing if you were to hire an employee and you need to train the employee. You're going to learn how to communicate with that employee and how to impart to them how you want things handled, what result you're looking for. They're going to give you a result. Maybe you send it back and say, hey, let's tweak a few of these things. It's a very similar relationship. that employee that comes in on day one isn't going to know everything about your business. And there are going to be a lot more corrections that need to take place as you're training them. And one of the things that we do in our foundation course, when we have a free foundation course that basically just takes people through setting up their infrastructure and introducing exactly what you're talking about, taking them into this ChatGPT realm and plugging them in. Here's how you set it up. Here's how you start to prompt it. And here's how you start to educate it. And you start from mission, vision, primary aim. The GPT needs to understand your business. It needs to understand your model. And it needs to, the more context it has, the more valuable its ideas are going to be, the more applicable it's going to be. Your example of going through this naming stuff and getting dozens and dozens of ideas from your AI system and not using a single one of them signifies a proper use of AI. You're using it to augment your thought process and develop out better ideas and maybe think about things a little bit differently. But there's a difference between that and just pencil whipping an email and firing it off to somebody because you didn't feel like reading an email, and just make a response to this and send it off. And then somebody receives an email back from you, which I'm speaking from experience. We know when you pencil whip something in ChatGPT and just send it back to somebody. Like, you can tell from the generic responses. And there are TikTok accounts where Facebook reels and stuff where people are going through and teaching people how to recognize an AI email or how to recognize AI content. And we've seen a few people in the ABA industry get in trouble, at least in the court of public opinion, for pencil whipping AI stuff. When it first came out, people, I think, maybe thought they were going to get away with it a little bit more than they actually did. But keeping that human in the loop and keeping your AI in its box is important. I think probably the most similar relationship that I've seen between people using ChatGPT and it would be the virtual assistant world, right? So they want to hire somebody in the Philippines to come in, handle scheduling, or they want to handle some accounting stuff, or they're just bringing them in to be their personal assistant. And when you bring in that personal assistant or that executive assistant, your stress level is going to initially go up. You're going to start investing time into this person the same way you're going to have to with your AI systems. But you're going to start to invest time into this person. Your amount of your productivity level is going to go down. Your time consumption is going to go up. But eventually, those things start to switch as that person becomes acclimated to what it is that you need them to do in their role. And this is where you want to make sure that you're going down the right roads with your Chat GPTs or any of your AI systems. Grok, Gemini, any of them are really useful. So
Yeah.
give us an example, like when we're talking about prompting, what are some good ways to start learning? We've got our foundation course that you can go through for free and start learning how to build some of these prompts and set up your AI system and use it safely. But what are the principles of good AI prompts to really use on the clinical side? And how do you keep it safe, not spreading PHI?
Yeah. So let me start a couple of questions there. How do you create a good prompt? So there's a couple of posts out there on the anatomy of a good prompt. I think it starts from those two main principles that I talked about earlier. From a behavior analysis perspective, you need to be able to pinpoint well, and you need to be able to man as well. So you need to know what you want and ask for what you want. When you're doing that, you want to give as much context as possible. And you have to think of it from an efficiency standpoint as well. You can sit there and create 500 words of context for one question, but that's just not efficient. You can do a few different things, and I'm just going to use ChatGPT as an example here. It's the most popular LLM used in the world. With ChatGPT, there's a few different things that you can do. You can go into the settings area of the system. You can give it a little bit of background on yourself and say, I think in mine, I'm a behavior analyst. Speak to me at a graduate level. I'm an entrepreneur and a business owner. Use those as examples when you respond back to me. And then there's some permanent directives that you can put in there that I've actually done recently. There's some things that drive me nuts on ChatGPT. Number one, if you're not careful, it can agree with everything not everything, but it can agree with more than it's supposed to with you. So I put in a permanent directive and I said, be honest with me, tell me what you believe is true. And that's how you should respond to me. If I'm incorrect, tell me that I'm incorrect. I also put in some permanent directives because sometimes the responses are too colorful for my tastes. I don't want to see a whole bunch of icons and smiley faces and emojis and the rest of that. So I put in a permanent directive. When I say permanent directive, you can literally just type into the chat interface and say, moving forward, this is a permanent directive. Do not include, unless I ask for, emojis or icons or fun balloons or something like that, or colored. I like my ChatGPT experience to be very monochromatic. I like it to be just black and white. That's how I like to consume information. Yeah. Oh, I do. I very much like that. What's interesting too, that you said all business, because I encourage everyone, and I posted this on LinkedIn maybe about 8 months ago. I encourage everybody to do this, but you can ask ChatGPT and say, based on our conversations up to this point, create an image of what you think I and my life look like. And it was fascinating what it gave me, because it gave me an image of me working in a big home office with books around and this huge computer setup with my son, who was a baby at the time, sitting next to me. And I think it figured out that I drive a Tesla, so it parked a Tesla outside. But
oh my God.
but I got to tell you, if you put that in, it's just like a fun exercise. It's such an interesting mirror into who you are and what your life is. And then real quick, the second prompt, if you want to have some fun, is ask it. And I put this prompt on LinkedIn as well. Ask it to give you feedback about where your deficits are. And it's so accurate, it's scary. And it gave me my deficits. Hey, this is where you should address things in your professional and your personal life. And I just sat there, and it was like a ton of bricks being dropped on me at once. And I'm like, that was too honest for me. I don't know if I was ready for that type of feedback.
That's a bit much.
It was a bit much, but it was good to hear, and I took it in. And then I even asked my wife, I'm like, is this accurate? She's, yeah, it is. And then that just confirmed it, and it really was a lot of weight. But yeah, that's definitely the case.
You bring up a good point, because if you sit down and you start building out a ChatGPT, or if you're getting any kind of custom GPTs, or you're just having a conversation with the standard 4.0 or 4, it will tell you that every ridiculous idea that you come up with is awesome. It'll just say, oh, this is great. Oh, we're gonna whatever, come up with some silly invention that won't work and say, hey, I need to design this thing. It'll say, oh, this is brilliant. Let's get into it. And you don't want a yes person in your life that just says yes to everything. You want some of that resistance there. And just like you have in any relationship, I mean, you want to have somebody that you say, hey, I'm going to do this thing, and they come back to you and say, I'm not so sure that's a good idea, right? You want some throttling there, but you have to build that into the GPT, or it will just yes you to death. And then the other side of it, which is giving it that context. And there are times that I will write a 500 to 1,000 word prompt. And I want to have this email is going to go out to 6,000 people. So I want to develop a subject line that is honest, transparent. It's going to grab their attention. And I might write 1,000 words to come up with a 6-word email subject, but you're going to be able to analyze it from all those different angles and keep things straight. And again, in those contexts, you almost never end up using one of their ideas, but you're going to develop out what's in there, what's important to include, and what to pay attention to. Recently, I have a 2021, you talk about Tesla cars, but I have a 2021 GMC Yukon, and it's got about 67,000 miles on it. I have a warranty through 175,000 miles, and it's at the dealership. The engine is trash. The thing just blew up, and GM has had a problem with that engine, so it needs to be replaced. And the warranty company is basically backing off and saying, we're not going to cover this $20,000 engine replacement because if there's carbon buildup in the engine, then we're going to exclude it, right? So I'm going down this road to circle back to AI, but I told the warranty company, I said, no problem, send me the contract, right? Send me the contract with all the exclusions in it. And while I'm sitting at stoplights driving from my office back to my house, at stoplights, talking to my ChatGPT app, uploading the contract, saying this is what's going on. By the time I stopped at 3 stoplights and I pull into my driveway, I have a fully built demand letter, a legal demand notice, a letter for the dealership notifying them of what's going on. I email it to my lawyer and I said, hey, we need to send this certified mail to the warranty company. And we're going to also advise them that we're sending this other notification to the Florida. There's a regulatory body over warranties, services, and insurance and things like that. So like all of it's handled. And I've now got the explanation based on that documentation, what actually is required. What can they actually deny my claim for? What's required on their end as far as all the Florida state statutes and things? What are they going to have to do to screw me here? And then how do I protect myself from that happening? And when it makes a statement or it tells you something about, according to this contract, this has to be caused by carbon buildup, not just have carbon buildup present. Okay, where in the document does it say that? I want page number, paragraph number, and the line. And then you go and look at the document yourself and make sure that it's actually there. And I don't fire off a certified letter to this company. I give my lawyer the template that's been built and say, hey, this is everything that needs to be included in it, but you're the legal expert. Like, you're the one who knows like how to structure these things, right? So keeping those humans in the loop, but being able to quickly review a 37-page document, pull out all the important stuff of exactly what you're looking for in this document, translate that all into making sure all of your bases are covered in all the different areas, and being able to just crank out a PDF and download it and email it out to the people who need it. That would have taken me 3 days to put together, just Googling stuff and reading. And it took 4 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think that's the perfect visual kind of representation that you illustrated there of how to properly use these systems. And the interesting part here is when you mentioned attorneys and legality, in Florida, I was speaking to a buddy of mine that's an attorney, and I asked him, I'm like, are you concerned about AI systems taking over too many parts of your industry? And he said, flippantly, and he said the legal assistants are in some trouble, but he said the attorneys are not, because apparently in the state of Florida deemed that an attorney must be a human being. And they did this about 1.5 years ago when the AI craze really started hitting its zenith. And he said, an attorney must be a human being. You can't show up to court with a machine. You have to have an attorney present. And I'm hoping that the BACB, to bring this back to behavior analysis, will do something similar at some point and say a behavior analyst is a human being. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I think that should be part of the regulatory framework. I know it seems self-evident, but it isn't always the case. So I think it's going to be important to do that. But yeah, I liked your examples a lot. And this will allow me to segue a little bit into what we're doing at Intraverbal AI is when you asked a question earlier about safety with these systems and PHI. So when we go to systems like ChatGPT or Claude, I think most behavior analysts know at this point you can't plug in PHI into these systems. You can't just grab an FBA or a reauth or something like that and upload it in there because it's got client information in there. And these systems are not designed to be HIPAA compliant. Now, there's some workarounds to some of this. If you have an enterprise account, you can sign a business associate agreement. But that basically just states that ChatGPT and OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT, promise on their honor that they're not going to use any of your information for nefarious activities. And call me skeptical, but I'd like to go a little bit beyond that because just taking their word for it makes me a little concerned. And so this really takes us over to the 2 value propositions that we offer with Intraverbal AI. So our base tool that we have, the very first tool that we developed, is our chat tool. And we set up our system to be HIPAA compliant. And what we did was we didn't just take all of the regular HIPAA compliant measures, user permissions and logging interactions and making sure that you have role-based security and all of that fun stuff. But we also set up a system where when people add information into the system, our system removes the PHI, it de-identifies and anonymizes that information before AI even processes it. So then AI processes it with placeholders, like instead of saying your name, Derek, it would say bracket name bracket, and then process it, sends it back, and then our system re-identifies that information, puts it back in, and then when the answer pops out, it says for your client, Derek, and then it answers the question. And all of that gets done in 2 to 3 seconds. And that's the magic, quote unquote, of how these systems work. So that's one piece of it. The other piece that I wanted to talk about that I feel is really important is the sources of the information. So these systems like Claude, ChatGPT, supposedly primarily have been trained on information from the internet. Now, there's all sorts of lawsuits happening now. We've discovered in a recent lawsuit that Claude used information from certain books. They did part of it okay, part of it was not okay. But for the most part, these systems are getting information from the internet. And that's good and bad. There's a lot of good information on the internet. There's a lot of bad information on the internet. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to bridge the gap there, the source gap. And with a lot of these systems, you can ask them for citations, but since they've been trained on this information, it's difficult for the systems to identify exactly where they got each answer from. So our system works a little bit differently. Through a process called semantic search, we actually set up licensing agreements with publishers of behavior analysis journals and books, and we grabbed all of this information. Right now in our system, we've got about 25,000 journal articles from all of the most popular behavior analysis journals. By the end of August, we're going to have about 40,000 journal articles in there. And what we really created was a HIPAA-contained chat system that directly interacts with the behavior analysis literature, and it gives literally citations, in-text citations, and a reference list showing where the information came from. So the big goal here for us was to solve the trust problem that so many people have with these large language models, which is, where are you getting your information from, and what are you doing with our information? And we tried to solve these particular problems, and we feel like that's the value proposition that we offer with this one particular tool. We have many tools, but this was our foundational tool. I know I said a lot there, so did all that make sense?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the bracket name bracket. So it's the same way we handle the privacy side of building out your mission, vision, primary aim, and starting to build your policies and procedures within your ChatGPT environment, just like we do in the Blueprint series, right? So as we're going through that, we tell it, we tell the students, don't even give them your company name, right? Use bracket, company name, bracket. I don't want you using your email with your domain. I don't want them to be able to easily attach this to you. Just call me paranoid, but like the less information ChatGPT has, the better off you are. But at the same time, there's a lot of people out there that are rolling the dice that are using AI, and they're going to be moving ahead. They're going to be moving down the road a lot faster than you are if you're not implementing this stuff. That, along with making sure that you actually have your AI system educated and trained properly. The first couple of things that we put into the knowledge base are the HIPAA PDF regulations, right? So the whole document of all the HIPAA regulations goes in. The BACB code of ethics goes in, right? Now, in your case with Intraverbal, you've taken this giant collection of all of the clinical information and actually licensed it properly, got it from the people who actually produced it and are participating with them. So that's a major green flag as far as I'm concerned, to see a company who's actually taking that step to do the right thing ethically, make sure that they have licensing for it, and that you're actually gathering good information for people to use. But that's a lot of training that an ABA company would no longer have to do with their particular AI system to get it educated. So having that on the back end. I don't want to get too techie, but where, like, how are you hosting this? What language models are you guys actually utilizing to power your platform? Like, how does the back end of it how is it structured?
Yeah, great questions. We host primarily on AWS, Amazon Web Servers. So they give us a whole bunch of HIPAA compliance options that some of the other hosting companies don't on their backends. So that plus they give us a lot better uptime than some of the smaller hosting companies. And we've just had, generally speaking, I've been in the ABA technology space for 10 years now, and we've had such better experience with AWS than other hosting companies out there. And then in reference to the models, we use a collection of models. So we do work with OpenAI, we do work with Claude, we do work with open access models like Llama, things like that. And it depends on the task. So our system has a variety of different tools in it. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So we've got a variety of different tools here that we've developed for Intraverbal AI. So the chat is one of them that I was just discussing here. That's literally connected to a variety of different journals and behavior analysis. As you can see, we've got just under 25,000 in there. And it does use a variety of those different models that we were talking about, depending on what task you're doing. So for our chat task, we've got a particular model that we use. We've got something called document review, where you can actually upload FBAs, reauthorization reports, diagnostic reports, and interact with those documents. We've got a separate model for that. We've got a whole separate tool that we just refer to as goals, where you can upload your existing clinical documentation and then have an interaction with the system. And when you have the interaction with the system, it will give you goal suggestions based on your clinical documentation. We're using a different model for that. We've got an assessment tool here that kind of walks you through the process of doing a full initial assessment with an FBA, indirect assessment, direct assessment, summarizing the client intake forms, all of that stuff. So we've really got a mixture of different tools that we're using AI for, and we're using different models for them, because what we've discovered over the course of the past few years is that different models are better for different activities and different tools. Just independently using something like Perplexity that not that many people use is great if you want to get surface level citations and sources for your information. ChatGPT and Claude, I found, are a little bit better for creative tasks. And then there's individual tools out there. There's hundreds of individual, what we call wrapper tools that wrap around those large models. There's tools out there. I use Gamma all the time to generate PowerPoints, and that's wrapped around some of those main large language models that we were discussing. It just, to answer your original question, Derek, it just depends on what activity they're doing inside of our system. If they want to do and I'll just give an example here. If you just want to have an interaction with the system and you want to get just some basic information, and you go into the chat and you just want to ask some questions about a particular concept, or if you've got a general need, let's say you're a BCBA working in schools or something like that, and you're running into a clinical problem and say, how can I address this from the classroom level and the individual level? You can use our chat to answer some of those questions. And obviously you see the in-text citations here, plus you have a full reference list here indicating which tools were used, or excuse me, which citations and references were used to answer those particular questions. So it just depends on what activity you want to do and how you want to do it. And depending on all of those factors, that's how we factor in which model that they're going to use in our system. Not sure if that makes sense or if that answered your question, but that's how we set up the back end here on our system.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And there's a lot of AI companies that are just going with one model and using it in all the different areas. And I think what you're doing is brilliant. There are stronger and weaker skill sets across all of these platforms, and using them for their strong points is definitely a smart move. So everything is hosted on AWS. You've got all the HIPAA stuff taken care of. All of your clients get to be with your services so they can put PHI into this system and it's handled properly. So how do they regulate who on their team should be using this? Is this a BCBA tool, an RBT tool, administrative? What is the level of use as far as your common users?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we really wanted, it's interesting, you and I were talking right before we went live about whether our system focuses a little bit more on the behavior analysis and the clinical or the administrative tasks. We stay as far away from the administrative tasks as possible. So we don't do scheduling or billing or anything like that. That is not our area of expertise. Everybody that works at our company is a behavior analyst. That's our strength. So we stick to behavior analysis. So to answer your question, the people that are best suited to use these systems or these tools that we've developed are practitioners. So Ds, RBTs, anybody that's in the clinical or academic realm. And I don't want to restrict our system because we've got a whole bunch of users in the university system right now that use our system. And we actually created 3 models here for our chat, just for an example. And the analytic model does a much deeper dive and gives you a larger answer. And it gives you some of the breakdown here, like our impulsive model here just gives you an answer based on 3 research articles, where the analytic one will give you an answer based on 10 research articles. So some of the graduate programs that we're working with use the analytic model all the time to help develop course content, exams, that sort of thing. But I would say the primary users are practitioners. So for example, when people go into our system to use our assessment module, this is going to be BCBAs that go in here. So just to give you an elevator, 30-second elevator breakdown of our assessment system, but our assessment system is designed to make the process of initial assessments and reassessments much easier. So our system starts off with the intake documents. So ideally somebody at the organization uploads, and actually this is one part where an administrator would be involved. The administrator would upload the intake documents, so previous assessments, previous reauths, diagnostic assessments, things like that, upload it into the system. Our system immediately gives a summary of that particular kiddo's information and then suggests questions to ask during the indirect assessment, during the interview process. All of this gets emailed to the behavior analyst ahead of time so that they can review it. Because realistically, it's really hard to get through all of the client's previous documentation before getting into the home. So this expedites that process. Then for the indirect assessment, usually the parent interview, our system, whether it's through our mobile app or through our browser, Teams or Google, it will transcribe the full interview. And then once the interview is done, you press end. The system comes over and gives you a summary of that particular interview. You can put in any extra notes that you have, whatever it is, so you don't have to write everything up. And when you're in the interview, you can attend better to the interviewee, ask follow-up questions, just do better active listening. And then we do the same process for the direct assessment. And then finally, you can add in some documents at the end. So VB-MAP, ABLES, Vineland, those sorts of things. And then you get to the last step here, and this is where you can generate the report. Now, what we did here is we're actually working with maybe about 6 or 7 BCBAs that work as peer reviewers at insurance companies and third-party administrators, and they reviewed our template here to make sure that it would pass muster, it would get approved by the insurance companies. And basically what this does, and actually what we're doing now is we're setting up custom templates for individual companies depending on their needs. But the idea here is to reduce the administrative time for practitioners. So we did some initial research and we found that while most clients are approved for about 8 to 10 hours of assessment time, including everything that I just went through, indirect assessment, direct assessment, report write-up. They're approved for about, on average, 8 to 10 hours, but on average, the full process takes 18 to 20 hours. So we've cut that down dramatically so that people don't have to spend as much time report writing. But what we like to always communicate is that when we generate the report at the end, it's about 80% of the way there. And we expect the BCBA to come in and do the final 20% and make the report their own. And this is where the augmented intelligence piece comes in. So we're not replacing them, we're just compiling all of the information, collating it, and then putting it into grammatically correct report, and then allowing the BCBA to come in and really make it their own, put in the finishing touches, and then submit it. So instead of taking 6 to 8 hours to write a complete report, it takes them 1 hour, an hour and a half, and they can just make it better. So to answer your original question, I know this was a really long answer, but I would say the people that use our system primarily are practitioners or behavior analysts that are trying to make their job easier.
You're improving the end result, right? The outcomes are going to improve because you have more thorough reporting system. You're reducing drastically the amount of time that's invested to create these reports. What outcomes have you seen in a clinical context with outcomes? Has it been out long enough to really gather that much data, or what have you learned there?
Yeah, great question. So we've got a whole dashboard where we collect a ton of information so we can learn what people are using the system for and what they're not. We're regularly engaging with our customers to say, okay, what are you using and what do you like? What needs to be changed? How is it helpful? I think right now, the chat system, the goals system, and the document review system, those 3 tools are probably what's being used the most right now, especially the chat system, because it connects directly with the literature. The other tools connect with the literature, but in different ways. The assessment does, but in different ways. But I think people are using our system right now, simply put, to do better evidence-based care. And I did a post on LinkedIn about a month and a half ago about this, that we're trying to solve the big binder problem. Like, you can't go into a home or into a clinic with a ginormous binder that has 10,000 journal articles in it from the last 20 years. It's just not possible. So we want to do evidence-based care. We want to base what we're doing on literature, but if we're fair now, it was so difficult to do that. So that's one of the biggest problems we want to solve. And we actually, I'm going to throw in a quick partnership here, is we set up a partnership with First Work. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with First Work. They are fantastic mobile app that's out there. Patrick Fogg, who's in charge over there, is just one of the best people in the world to work with. And we set up a system where our goals tool here, which I was showing everyone earlier, actually connects with the First Work app and will generate the goals for the First Work app and create the First Work code so that it can just be plugged in quickly into the First Work app. And that's saved people so much time and so much energy, and it can be client specific and it can work with other devices. So I really feel like saving people time and doing evidence-based care has been the biggest plus of using our system up to this point.
Yeah, we've actually had First Work on here for a demo. He's gone actually twice. He's gone through his product, and really, again, just it's improving your outcomes, reducing the amount of time invested, and really like being able to zoom in on what you really want to do in your job. I think the biggest, being able to brain dump, get all the information out of your head into a system that's now going to organize it. I think that's the biggest thing for anybody to really learn how to do. And use the voice recognition on your computer. Go on a rant, right? Or even if you're on your phone, like you can hit the button and start talking to it and dictating, and you don't have to worry about the autocorrect or the text correction as much because it'll pick up on a lot. So we're covering basically everything from the assessment to the treatment planning. You mentioned Vineland, VV-Map, all that stuff being able to be integrated with this. What else is coming on the roadmap? What else is left on the clinical side, really? What's coming down the road? What features will you be adding on your systems as time goes forward?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me give you guys, I'm sharing and then reshare here really quickly. So I'm going to give you guys a little preview real quick of what's coming down the road. So our system was really designed initially to go from assessment to discharge with regards to your clients and everything in between. So that includes obviously the assessment we've gone over, the chat, the goals, document review, that sort of thing. But the next items that we're going to be releasing, the next tools over the course of the next couple of months are some exciting ones. So I'm going to show you all. Let me share again here really quickly. We're creating a general. Can you see my screen again?
Yes, sir.
Awesome, awesome. So we're creating a general transcription tool here that works specifically with supervision and parent training. And part of the cool part about what this does is after you do your supervision meeting, let's say that you're a BCBA supervisor and you do a supervision meeting with your RVT or BCBA candidate, you can go in here and you can interact with that transcription. And we've built not only the literature, but specific prompts into the system so that it gives you OBM feedback. And we've built, you can see some of the stuff that we've given in here, put in here. So like ethical feedback, something called situation behavior impact expectations, supervisor response evaluator. It gives you your praise to correction ratio, talk time ratio, interruptions. And then you can have individual interactions, chat interactions with the transcriptions in here. And all of this has behavior analysis built in. So we wanted to make sure and include this in the process because supervision, parent training, that's all part of the clinical process. So that's one thing we're going to be releasing. The next thing that we're going to be releasing, and I want to just to throw this out here really quickly, I've got a great partnership with Kristen Bira in Upskill ABA to work on this transcription tool. Her and I are actually doing a presentation tomorrow on supervision on this. But the next tool, just really quickly, that I'm going to bring up is our learning management system. So we've partnered with a fantastic company. You can see them down here. It's called learningbehavioranalysis.com. And the two owners there, they're fantastic, Patrick and Clelia. We were actually just meeting with them earlier today. But we've created a system here, and it's going to do three things. It's going to do RBT 40-hour training and RBT exam prep. It's going to be doing supervision with a specifically designed curriculum from Kristen Bira, who I mentioned a minute ago. And then finally, what we're working specifically with Patrick and Clelia on is a BACB exam prep AI module here as well. So they're going to be able to go in and just have a conversational interaction through all of the test content outline items here. And you can see some of the stuff that we were testing earlier with some of this, and then it gives you an overview of where you are. But the idea here is my big vision for the future of AI in our system is one chat interface to rule them all. I think 5 years from now, most software systems, regardless of industry, are just going to have a chat interface, and you go in and you just say, this is what I need. This is what I want to do. I want to interact with these files. I want to do this or that. And it's just going to interact from there. And that's what we're building here. So to answer your question, the two big items that are on the horizon are this learning management system that's going to cover RBT training and prep and behavior analyst curriculum development for their supervision and BACB prep. And then finally, what I showed you earlier, which is our transcribe feature that really gives great feedback to everyone on how you're performing in supervision, how things went, what was covered, what wasn't covered. The same thing for parent training and just general meetings. So if you're having like a clinical directors only meeting or something like that, you can use this system for that as well. So that's some of the cool tools that we've got coming up on the horizon here in the next month or so.
All right. So I own an ABA company. I want to try it out. How do I get my feet wet with your AI tools?
Yeah, so please feel free. You can do it in a few different ways. You can just go to our website, intraverbal.ai, and you can do one of two things. You can sign up for free and you can test out chat, document review, and goals. You get 10 free questions, demands, requests, however you want to put it, to ask. Or you can reach out to us at info@intraverbal.ai or use the contact form on our website. And you can reach out to us and just ask for a free couple of assessment credits. We're doing that for people right now just so that they can try out the assessment system. And then as we release the next few products over the course of the next month or so, feel free to reach out to us again through our email, info@intraverbal.ai, through social media. We're on Instagram @intraverbal.ai or @intraverbalai, same with LinkedIn. You can reach out to us at any of those contacts and we'll set you up with a free account. We'll run through a quick 20-minute intro on the different tools that you can use and then just let you explore the system.
Awesome. I fully agree with your prediction about everything just being a chat agent in the future. I think we got, I don't know, probably about 5 years before that's just the case. All of your stuff is just going to be logging in and talking to this expert, this robot expert that's going to know everything. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you showing us the system, and I can't wait to see you for all the future developments coming down the road. And when something pops up, let us know and come back on and show us.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for having me, Derek, Josh. I really appreciate it. It was great to be here today. And if anybody has any questions, like I said, feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're very responsive and we'll get back to you right away.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in the group. Thank you, Adam.
Derek.
You're already doing the work, investing your time, your energy, and your vision. So let's make it count. Build something that works without breaking you. The BCBA Blueprint is the way. Get started for free with our foundation course.